Wizkid, Machala.
Yeah.
So talking about Wizkid, after the BET Awards win, do you think Essence is the biggest African crossover record in Nigeria now?
The biggest. So there was a tweet that someone tweeted some days ago. That asked the question. Young tweeted it actually. Shout out to Young. He said, "Is Essence the biggest Nigerian crossover record ever?" The answer is not as straightforward. What is crossover? With what he said, crossover would mean across the rest of the world, like significantly outside Nigeria or mostly outside Africa, right? Impact-wise, success, reps, cultural impact, timing, staying power, all those things, right? And the answer is not straightforward. It's a very nuanced conversation, and only smart people will be able to follow it. If you are not smart, you would be confused. If you are not, if you can't apply context and nuance, you will be confused. So before you get on this episode, guys, leave your assumption at the door. Leave your bias at the door. Just because it doesn't agree with your bias doesn't make it untrue. Me, I'm telling you what it is, and not what it's not. So listen. And if you think you don't want to listen, there might be time for you to, you know what I mean. Anyway, there are 3 other songs that are in this conversation. Mostly that we've seen a lot of other songs like have crossover success. Fall by Davido, If by Davido, Burna Boy's Yay. We've seen Imere's record, Sad Girls Love Money. We've seen Peru as well. So African records that have had Oliver Twist as well, like incredible levels of success. But in this particular case, the top 4 biggest that I'll pinpoint in terms of impact, time relativity, success, genre, and success across board. One, obviously, Magic System's
Premier Gaou.
Exactly, Premier Gaou, right? Waymaker by Sinach, and obviously Love Nwantiti by Ckay. Factors that we are going to break down in this conversation. One, time, the concept of time, right? The concept of time relativity, like the difference between the times that things were recorded or released. Number 3, we're going to look at chart success. We're going to look at genres. We're going to look at location, and we're going to look at staying power. Staying power vis-a-vis cultural impact. Those are the things we're going to look at.
So I know we've brushed on this before in previous episodes, but please can you describe the eras that bettered these 4 songs?
Yeah. So the idea is, let's start with Waymaker. Waymaker was released in 2015. 2015 was a different era in Nigerian music. It was the pre-streaming era. I mean, streaming is not that big in Nigeria, but if less than 3 million Nigerians are streaming music, premium music subscribers, right? It shows you that 2015 was a different time entirely. So this was Afrobeats had just broken through in the UK. Nigerian artists were starting to cross over. Major labels were starting to, like music blogs. I created a blog, a bridge between for Nigerian music with the rest of the world, especially first with the UK and certain parts of Europe. Then America took notice, and the majors started to think about coming back. It was just before Wiz and David had signed their respective record label deals, right? It was just before then. So it showed you that, number 1, the major labels were not here. Number 2, streaming wasn't here. Number 3, African music didn't exactly interest the world as it does now. Like, for example, a lot of black people, London is very key in terms of like the journey and the spread of Afrobeats. London especially, and then other parts of Europe and America. Like London, at the time, it had only started to get cool for Africans to be African. Do you understand? Like at the time, people that grew up in the UK, especially in London, they will tell you that in the 90s and the 2000s, it was cooler to claim being Caribbean. Most of them, that's why a lot of them can speak patois. That's why they can say ting, because all of these things originate from like the Caribbean, right? So it makes a lot of sense for all of them. So when these things started, when Sinach released Waymaker, Number one, it was a gospel record. Gospel records, at the time, till now, gospel artists are still big. They are still huge, right? But major labels were not, no major label was interested in signing no gospel artists, even though some of them were signed to collecting bodies outside the country, right? Some of them might have been signed to Cobalt or whatever else, but it wasn't like Sony, Warner, or Universal Music. Do you understand? So, like, there was not a lot of TikTok. Like, streaming wasn't that big, so it was tougher to aggregate the impact of some of these records. You understand? Number four, there was no charts. You couldn't track it. Like, it was a dream for Nigerian records that were blowing up. We're not even cracking the bubbling under or its hit seekers charts. So what happened last year was the product of years and years of growth. Do you understand? And there was no TikTok where we would see virality. This was before Instagram, bro. This was before Instagram. You understand? I mean, this was 5 years into Instagram, rather. So it shows you that it was very, very early days. Yet, by the end of 2019, Sinach Waymaker was the most streamed Nigerian music video on YouTube. Yeah, with over 180 million streams, right, from across the world. So it shows you that at the time, people were listening, right, but it was very hard to track. And this was way before Nigerian artists were gaining 1 million streams in Nigeria organically within 1 day or within 1 week. It was the first person that did it was Beyonce, and that was like 2018 or thereabouts, right? Like, it wasn't commonplace for us to see that. We weren't seeing that. YouTube was mostly popular for Nollywood movies. Do you understand? So some of these factors were there, but we couldn't aggregate them as we can now. Be like an essence or a love Nwantiti. Do you understand? So, and I spoke with Sinach at the start of 2021. I interviewed Sinach at the start of 2020, rather. And she told me that you can see video evidence of this shows in Panama, Russia, online, right? Predominantly a white audience. And do you know why that is? Because it's also gospel music. And gospel music has a way of just staying. People are going to sing it in church every day. Do you understand? People are going to sing it. Like, you are playing Essence somewhere? Okay, don't worry. People are going to be singing it every day in church. That's cultural impact. So it had staying power, right? And a lot of the songs, and by the end of 2019, the rumor was that Sinach was charging 5 to 6 figures in dollars for shows. Do you understand? Right? And it was majorly off the back of Waymaker. I can't say the exact figure because I don't want LIRS to be tracking it. Do you understand? It shows you the impact of Waymaker. Waymaker was a huge record, right? Let's stop there for now for Waymaker. Now let's go back to Premier Gaou. Premier Gaou dropped in 2001. This was pre-Facebook. This was MySpace era. This was pre-YouTube. Do you understand? Yet, this record was released on Sony. But you have to understand that this was 2001. African record labels, foreign record labels left Nigeria in the 90s because of instability. They left some other parts of Africa due to instability as well, even though they were in strategic places in Africa, they had offices, but they were not as key as they used to because Africa was going through it at the time. Like, we were seeing the presidents who refused to go, economic instability, inflation, everywhere was a problem. Do you understand? Like, this was magic system. And this record charted in the Netherlands, I believe. It charted in Belgium, I believe. Charted in France, I believe. Right? Do you understand? Like, record labels for obvious reasons, because as much as Europe has always been a really good ground to cultivate African music, because first generation African and second generation African immigrants that have stronger roots or stronger affinity with the African roots were living in Europe, as opposed to the American counterparts that they were going straight into hip hop and R&B. Do you understand? So these guys record labels couldn't exactly bank on them. I mean, Francophone artists were exporting on a much easier scale to like France and Netherlands and Belgium, but it's not the same as it is now, where you are seeing Nigerian artists chatting in the UK for bins. It's commonplace now, right? But people chatting, people didn't realize that Asha chatted in some of these countries when she released her debut album. It's not common. Like, so the budgeting behind it was not as big because labels where's the audience for you to be able to monetize? And this was the height of, like, CD sales really, really rose in 1999, right? And they really, like, it was big. They really rose in 1999. And numbers started dropping around like 2004, 2005, 2006, right? So you understand that what was the interest for you to be able to monetize CDs for an African band that nobody knows? So there was no incentive for them to invest on that level. So you understand that even though it was released on Sony, the money, the investment would have been much smaller. The audience was much smaller. It was growing, but was much smaller at the time. There was no YouTube. There was no Facebook. It was MySpace. And the record was probably not even released on MySpace. Do you understand? So it was a different time. These are different times entirely. And aside from that, you are looking at a record that was released 21 years ago. It was 21 years ago. Remember that was 21 years ago. And what you are looking at, the push that, so, you know, feel the magic in the air, I think is the most streamed African YouTube music video, if I'm not wrong. That was about 300. Last time I checked, it was close to 300 million YouTube views, right? I'm not even sure Love Nwantiti, Soko, Essence are on that level, like Magic System. The push that Feel the Magic in the Air got, Premier Gaou didn't get it. Do you understand? Like, he didn't get it. You can't even track it as much. But guess what? Anytime people wanted to check Africa, they wanted to say Africa, they know African pop music. That's their reference record. Till now. For a lot of older people. Till now. This is not Afrobeats. This was Makossa and Sukus, bro. I mean, yes, Awilo Longomba was huge at the time, right? Awilo Longomba also had crossover success in Europe, but it wasn't on the level of Premier Gaou. Like, I remember, like, people used to call it African national anthem, Premier Gaou. That's cultural impact. Do you understand? It was the emblematic song for African pop music. That's it.
All right. But how different do you think this is from the era that dated Essence and Love Nwantiti?
So Love Nwantiti, the success of Love Nwantiti is the result of, number one, great music, with major label backing, with TikTok, with funding, and with success that you can actually track, and with strategy behind it. Do you understand? Like, now, because of the work that some of these other guys did, you can have this because now major labels now have faith. There's internet penetration. There's an increased interest in streaming. Younger people have different consumer behavior. Even though the purchasing power might not be there, but there is fear of missing out on streaming right now. So they want to be able to buy into it. They want to be able to pay 900 naira because some of their cool friends are paying for it. And because people are being shamed for not streaming music. So their mentality is different. They are post-internet babies. So it's different. And you can also see the numbers, how it's growing. You can see that. It was different in 2015. Let's not even talk about 2001. 2015 it's totally different to now. Do you understand? So it's totally different. And then Essence is major label back. It's great music as well. Fantastic music. You can go and watch the episode of Facts that we did that we did just a week after Mid Lagos dropped. I said it on that episode that this is one of the best records that Nigeria has seen this year. This was way before all of you were started shouting up and down. Right? 1, 2, major label backing. Because now the major labels are seeing that, okay, there's potential. Like, there's inside the continent, it's increasing. The need for people to be able to pay for music is increasing, right? And then outside the country, there's a demand for it. I just saw a trend now that Steve mentioned me on, where someone is saying that rap music in America is slowly starting to play second fiddle to Afrobeats. It shows you that it's a different era completely. It's totally different. Totally different. Bro, do you understand? Like, people are saying Afrobeats. Someone is arguing, and it's a tweet that trended on May 22. That Afrobeats is in certain circles, especially urban circles, that Afrobeats is starting to compete with rap music. Do you understand? Because it's fast-paced, it's danceable music in clubs, parties. So it's two different eras completely. So now that we've talked about time relativity, let's focus on chart success, chart genre and location, and then staying power and cultural impact. That's it.
But Wizkid's Essence is the highest charting Nigerian song ever on the Billboard 100. Isn't it Nigeria's biggest crossover record ever?
No, it's not. Chart success right now, you can measure chart success right now. But bro, 20 years ago when Premier Gaou dropped, that was not possible. That was not realistic. That couldn't happen. Yet, the record is emblematic for Africa's pop music. Right now, you're also looking at it, because of those things that the Premier Gaou did, and Awilo did, Oliver Twist did, they built up the interest in African pop music. And now, a Wizkid, who is also part of the people that built it, is now also benefiting from it. Like, built the pathway, is now benefiting from it. And guess what? Wizkid doesn't have a number. Wizkid is probably not going to enjoy as much success as Tems will. But guess what? The reason why a lot of people, the major trigger for Tems' career at this time is Essence. And it's a Wizkid song. Do you understand? So, forerunners open the way. That's the rule of life. But doesn't mean that because something now is not here, we can say outrightly that it's the biggest crossover record ever. No. In America, yes, it's the biggest crossover record. It's the highest charting record in America. But can we then even say that culturally it's the most impactful record? I don't think we can say that outrightly, because guess what? Sinach's Waymaker is a gospel record. It's a shame that, number one, gospel records don't even chart on the Billboard Hot 100 as much, as they don't rise as high. They chart, but they don't rise as high. Look at how big Jaira is on TikTok. Jaira, is it charting? If you were, bro, it's not. It's not, because the audience is totally different. It's a different ballgame entirely for the audience. Number two, record labels don't even invest as much in gospel artists as they do in secular artists. So it's unlikely that you're going to see it on that level. But guess what? In church every Sunday, people are singing that song. Like, what is bigger than people singing the song? The only difference between a Wizkid and a Sinach is that people associate Wizkid with Essence. A lot of people don't even know Waymaker is Nigerian. Do you understand? That's how big it is. Like, I remember OVO of Not Just Okay, he was saying like 3 years ago that in his church, that people sing, like, Waymaker is that big, that every church he goes to, people singing. That is cultural impact. That's staying power. It's going to be here for you know how we've been singing a Sonny Okoso song for the past 30 years. That's cultural impact. That's staying power. Are people singing Yahoozy on that level? No. Do you understand the difference now? So, once something registers in the zeitgeist, we have a way of underrating that is the cultural impact that people are talking about. The sad thing is, pop records come and go. They have their era and they go. Now, people might play them in subsequent years and they have, like, there's nostalgia in your mind, right? You enjoy, oh my God, that song. But in gospel, there is no place for nostalgia because you are hearing it regularly. Does that make sense? You are hearing it every other time. So that's cultural impact. So can you then say that, and America is a largely Christian country. The most racist people are Christians. A lot of members of the Ku Klux Klan read sounds before they go and do wild shit. Do you understand? Now, and then the thing with Essence is, if you get to the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100, it means you had impact in white America. That's what it means. It means you had impact in white America. But significantly, there's a reason why the record didn't get a Song of the Year nomination, even though it should have gotten it. It's because right now, Afrobeat is still a secondary genre. Gospel is a primary genre. And people don't know that Waymaker is a Nigerian record. And 5 years post-release, 5 years after the release of Waymaker, Michael W. Smith did a remix of it during the lockdown. Do you understand what that means? And she started chatting again. 5 years post-release. Cultural impact. In a predominantly white country that is very, very driven by religion. Cultural impact. And then let's go to Love Nwantiti. Love Nwantiti, numbers show that's a bigger record than Essence across the rest of the world. In America, Essence is bigger, yes. But in the rest of the world, Love Nwantiti is a way bigger record. It's a bigger record. So, credit to Essence that is going to, in terms of, is the forerunner in terms of that run, It's going to open the door for a lot of subsequent successes. But before we say that it's strict sense, even before we say that it's strict sense the biggest, right, in Americas and Europe, let's give it some years. But right now, it's not. It's not. It's really not.
Okay, please, can you rank those 4 records and give us reasons for your placements?
Number 1, I'll go for Premier Gaou, simply because it's been here for the longest. 21 years. Yeah, I'll go for Premier Gaou. Because it's also it's been emblematic of African pop music for 20 years. So I'll go for that, right? Secondly, I'll go for Waymaker because it's a gospel record and simply because it's gospel, right? Thirdly, I'll go for Love Nwantiti across the rest of the world. Yes. It's still early days, right? And then Essence at number 4, in terms of across the rest of the world. I'll place Essence at number 4. Then that's it. But there are also other records, right, that should be in this conversation of biggest crossover records. Amare's Sad Girls Love Money. Davido's If and Fire. If and Four, right? Burna Boy's Yeah. Magic System. Magic in the Air, Magic System. I was also put that in the conversation. I think those are the records. And that's Factory.